Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Collins, and I'm a mandolin player from Toronto, Canada. I play a bunch of different styles of music, bluegrass and jazz, and some classical and swing and some Celtic music, and they all kind of find their way into my original music. That first little bit of mandolin that I played for you was a tune that I wrote called Corkscrew Road. And so I've been playing mandolin now for 24 years. I first kind of discovered bluegrass music through a friend of mine in high school who's a prominent banjo player of the clawhammer style named Chris Cool. And I went to high school with him, and he played John Hartford stuff and a bunch of sort of hippie country music. And, John Hartford fell into that, and some bluegrass music. And at first I thought I didn't like the mandolin until the very first time I heard the David Grisman Quintet. And as soon as I heard the David Grisman Quintet, the mandolin became my favorite instrument, and I started seeking out other players like Sam Bush and Bill Monroe and Mike Marshall and all these great mandolin players. But David Grisman was definitely the starting point for me. And when I heard that music, that first Grisman Quintet album specifically, it just changed my world. In the first 5 seconds of hearing that album, I felt like I knew this music even though I'd never heard it before, and it just made me an instant mandolin lover. And it was a good 5 years before I finally broke down and bought my first mandolin and started playing it, but the seed was definitely planted that day. If there's a mandolin player or name that changed my life, again, that would be David Grisman's music. It really wasn't until this year that I met him for the first time, and even that was virtually online doing the Isolationist Guide to Mandolin, but his music just converted me to a mandolin player. And then, there are lots of players, Chris Thiele, Matt Flinner, everything from like old Monroe style to the most modern mandolin players, Jacob Jolliffe, that keep me interested in this instrument. And there's so much that can be said with it. If there's a mandolin CD that kept me more than others in my heart or mind, well, that first Grisman Quintet album, in chronology, the first Grisman Quintet album was the first mandolin album that rocked my world. And then I started devouring all his music, and by extension Mike Marshall's music. Then the next album that really blew me away was Chris Thiele's album Stealing Second. I think he was 13 or something like that when he put out that album, and I was already 24 or 25, but I learned almost every song off that album, and it really blew me away. And then I discovered Matt Flinner's album A View From Here around the same time that I also found the Uncommon Ritual with Mike Marshall and Edgar Meyer and Bela Fleck. And those two albums around the same time were on constant rotation, and I'd say had maybe the most impact on my composing as a mandolin player. They really touched me. And then later on I met actually this great mandolin player named David Long, who reintroduced me to traditional Monroe style mandolin playing. His album, actually an album he did with Chris Sharp, One Hand on the Radio, all of a sudden hearing that old school mandolin style with such a modern aesthetic reignited my interest in figuring out Monroe style a bit. Not that I'm a Monroe style player, but hearing someone play it so cleanly and precisely with a modern aesthetic, but that old school tone really taught me how little I was playing bluegrass when I was playing bluegrass. And I discovered that you can have a lot more power with fewer notes in that music if you're playing the song and playing the melody right. And then if you deviate from those few notes, then all of a sudden there's more impact in a bunch of eighth notes. What do I like to play on mandolin in concert and in my private moments when I'm not on stage? Well, I think this has changed a lot in the last 4 months, but when I'm in concert, my main act these days, and pretty much only touring act these days, is my own trio, the Andrew Collins Trio, which has another wonderful mandolin player in the band named Mike Mezzatesta, who also plays guitar and fiddle in the band. And when I am playing that stuff, we're mostly playing my original music. We throw in a little bit of old time and classical music, and like we like to change it up with different styles, but mostly I try to present original stuff that I've written and arranged for the trio. So that's mostly what we spend our time doing. Um, when I'm playing on my own these days, I do a lot more, well, exploring my own music and writing and practicing. But since the Isolationist Guide to Mandolin, I've found myself preparing a lot of material that I've worked on over the years. Traditional bluegrass stuff and old time stuff and jazz stuff and Celtic stuff. And so really whatever theme we have upcoming with the Isolationist Guide to Mandolin is what I find myself practicing these days. So yeah, if I was to play a couple samples of music that I'm working on these days, right now I'm preparing for the Celtic edition, so I've been playing some jig stuff like last week we did, or a week and a half ago, the Isolationist Guide to Mandolin was bluegrass themed, so I played a couple original tunes. I actually played a little bit of the tune I opened this interview with, Corkscrew Road, and I did another song of mine that was a little Ronnie McCurry influence, and he was one of our guests, so it was like... So, kind of exploring all different kinds of music. You know, sometimes I'll work on some Bach. So those are the main things that I've been playing around with these days. What are the projects at the moment that I've been working on? Well, before this COVID thing arose, the Andrew Collins Trio was about to get into the studio and record our 5th album. That was derailed a bit. So the main focus, and we're still planning on doing that, but probably in a few weeks' time. Early September is the goal for that. The main project that I've been working on is this Isolationist Guide to Mandolin, which, when the COVID thing rocked the music world, people started doing all these live online concerts, and so much of my music has been dependent on playing with people. I don't do a ton of solo stuff these days, although that has changed, I guess. And I saw these online concerts, which at first weren't really compelling for me, and I wanted to try a little experiment where I did over Zoom. The first one was called The Isolationist Guide to Mandolin, and I had a few guests that are friends of mine, all great musicians. Adrian Gross of the Slow Can Ramblers, and Joe Walsh of A Million Bands, and David Benedict, whose main project is Mile 12, but also a really great solo artist as well. And I devised this online festival style workshop where we each performed a couple tunes and then just opened it up to a panel discussion where the audience could ask us questions online. and the response to that was so great that I have since done 8 more of them. Every other Wednesday we do one of them, and so I went through, the first one was just simply my friends and I. The second one was called The Next Generation, where I invited 3 artists earlier in their careers, Tristan Scroggins and Charlotte Breeze and Dominic Leslie. And then the next one was the Monroe Style, and followed by, what else did we do? New Acoustic, which was really exciting for me. I had Jacob Jolliffe, Matt Flinner, and David Grisman, Dog himself. And we did a jazz one, and an old time one, and last week was just straight ahead bluegrass, and next week we have the Celtic edition with Seamus Egan and David Surrett and Simon Mayer. And these have been really exciting for me. They've kept me busy at this time and kept an audience, building an audience for something online. And I've also been doing a monthly instructional workshop. That the first one was, that is an offshoot of the Isolationist Guide. The first one was called the Isolationist Guide to Improvisation, which was a 2-hour online workshop that was just taught by me. And then last weekend I had the second one, which was the Isolationists Guide to Rhythm Playing, and where I looked at, the first half was looking at rhythm as like different ways to chop and add rhythmic interest to what you're doing, and then the second half was looking at harmonic ways to build interesting chords and voice leading. And the next one coming up, which will be August 23rd, I think, is the Isolationist Guide to Twin Mandolins, where I'm going to look at how you devise harmonies, and we're going to look at, first for simple songs, like for vocals, how to figure out a 3-part harmony, and then we're going to take that to mandolin tunes like Soldier's Joy or whatever tune, and going to hopefully share the information of how to do this yourself. And all of these series have been recorded and are available for people if they want to view any of the workshops. They just need to get a hold of me, and there's a donation, and you can view any of these workshops that I've done. My plan is to continue these into the year coming, and hopefully get back on the road someday playing music with my trio. I've got my first solo concert coming up online, but in August, somewhere around August 21st or 22nd, the Andrew Collins Trio is going to be playing a live online concert, Facebook Live, with the Quarantine Happy Hour, and just trying to navigate our way through these strange times. And at this moment, I'm just trying to connect with people online, and been teaching privately, people of all levels, and I usually do 3 or 4 camps a year, and obviously those were derailed. So these Isolationist Guide to Mandolin workshops have been really great for helping me fill my time and figure out ways to keep busy in this very strange time. So please feel free to visit andrewcollinstrio.com to hear one of the 4 albums we've recorded, or go to our Facebook page, Facebook, the Andrew Collins Trio, or if you're interested in the Isolationist Guide to Mandolin, we've got a Facebook page for that as well. And thank you, Fabio, for your interest in interviewing me, and please feel free to reach out, anyone, if you ever have any questions or just want to talk mandolin. Thank you so much, and I hope you're all keeping safe and keeping busy playing your mandolins. Have a great day.